Thank Hashem, Seven Tzliach. We're going to continue Mesachas Sanhedrin, and we are on Daf Talmud Gimel Amud Bet Amar Rabbi Yitzchak 63B-2. And this week's learning is Le'ilin Shmat Simcha Chaim Ben Elisheva Shamash Havan Aliyah Gomachai Machal B'Ganeden. Okay, so we're middle talking about Avodah Zarah and the Dinim of Avodah Zarah and the halachas of Avodah Zarah, and at this point, we already started a little bit about some Agadata about Avodah Zarah. We talked about how all Litzanut, making fun, is also except the Litzanus of Avodah Zarah. So continues our Gemara today with more Agadata about Avodah Zarah. Amr Yitzchak, there's a pasuk in Hosea. The pasuk there says, "Va'ata yosifu lahato." Now the Jews are sinning even more. They're sinning even more with avodah zarah. Vayasu lahem masicha mikaspam. They're making molten figures of their silver. Kitvunam atzabim, in the shapes of idols. My kitvunam atzabim. What does it mean? The shape of idols? Comes to teach us. This is how bad it was during the time of the first Beit HaMikdash, before the destruction of the first Beit HaMikdash. That what? Shoko ehad ve'ehad asad demut. Every person would make their own miniature avodah zarah, portable, something they can carry around. And they would put it in their purse, in their pocket. And any time that they remembered about their avodah zarah, they took it out from the place, and they would hug it and they would kiss it. Meaning, at the time, at the destruction of the first Beit HaMikdash, people were so entrenched into Avodah Zarah that they had to create for themselves portable Avodah Zarah so they can take around and they can have with them at all times to kiss and hug and embrace. The pasuk continues, Zoche Adam Agadim Mishakun. Gemara asks, what is this Zoche Adam Agadim Mishakun? Those who slaughter people will kiss calves. What does this mean? Well, calves were probably one of the egel, was one of the avodah zarah. What does this mean? So Yitzchak but Devei Rabbi Ami. Yitzchak, from the Academy of Rabbi Ami, he has an interesting shot. He says as follows: Shahayu mishtratei v'kochavim notnim einehim beva'alei mamon. The priests of the avodah zarah, they would put their eyes on the wealthy people. They wanted their money. So they came up with a very interesting ruse to get the money. What would they do? They would make the calves, these live calves that people worship, they would starve them. They would make images of these rich people and put it by the food, the place where they usually ate from, where the animals usually ate from. They put the pictures of these rich people, and they starve them, right, to make them hungry and to make them recognize these people. Then they would take these calves and they would bring them outside. Now, when these calves got outside, since they were recognizing the picture and now they saw the actual person, they ran after those actual people and they're kind of like pushing them. And now the priests would come and Omrim Lo, they would say to the wealthy people, they would say to these people, oh wow, you're so lucky. This Avodah Zarah, he wants you. You should kill yourself. You should allow yourself to be killed and brought up as a korban to this Avodah Zarah. And according to one shot in Maharsha, is that this is what they did. And they would then kill these wealthy people, and then whoever got killed, the law was the money. If you got killed by an avodah zarah, the money would go to the bet avodah zarah, and it would become the property of the priests. The Maharsha gives a different explanation, saying that they would tell them, "Listen, this avodah zarah wants you, and you need to go to him, but we'll take a pidyon, we'll take all your money in exchange for your life to live." And that's the way they would use Avodah Zarah to get what they want. Amar Rava. Rava has a problem with his explanation. He says, once again, the pasuk says, those who bring up, who slaughter people, carbonous people, they will kiss the Avodah Zarah. But what you're saying, agalim yishakun lizbo hadam, you're saying that the eagle, the calves were kissing the people, and then they killed those people. That's not what the pasuk says. So it said kill people, then kiss the calves. Elam Rava. Rather, Rava said, Kol hazoveach et beno lavoko chavim. This was the halacha back in the day. Anyone who brought up their child to avodah zarah and brought him as a korban, Omar lo, the priest of the avodah zarah would tell him, Doron gadol hikriv lo. Wow, you did a great big present you gave to the korban. Oh, v'yishaklo. Now you have permission to come and kiss the avodah zarah. You want to come close to avodah zarah? You want to kiss avodah zarah? You have to sacrifice your son. You know, I made this observation on Shabbat, but I think it's a very important observation to repeat again, just for people to understand, is that when we look around today and we say, what about the czars sacrificing sons and stuff like that, you have to understand that today the world has been somewhat to a certain extent, the Western world has put into values a lot of Jewish principles, a lot of Torah-based principles. Prior to that, in the day of old, especially in the times of Avram Avinu, all the Avot, the majority of the world was very chaotic and very barbaric. You wanted something that belonged to someone else, right? If a guy wants something, you killed that person and you took it, right? Like just like you had in the Parsha. Avram says, "Listen, you're my wife, and if you're so beautiful, they're gonna want you, and if I'm your husband, they're gonna kill me." That's the way it was. It wasn't just Mitzrayim; it was anywhere like that. It was anywhere you went. It was barbaric. There was no value system. Um, the whole value system is a very Jewish concept, and so sacrificing children was a worldwide concept. Everybody did it. It was Avram Avinu that was going around telling people, "No, you can't sacrifice your son." And that was the biggest challenge because now Hashem said, "Oh yeah, sacrifice your son with Yitzchak." Right? But it was Avram Avinu that was going around saying, "You can't do that. There's a value inherent in every life. We don't just kill life." Just you look around the world and you see people have a very different value system than Jews, and you're like, "What?" Like it doesn't make sense, right? What are they saying? Like supporting terrorists and what they did was justified and by any means necessary. And it disturbs us because it doesn't make sense. But it doesn't disturb them because if you don't have a Torah, then obviously, barbaric systems of doing what you want and in any way you want, then that's totally justified. Just the you're gonna go through this Gemara, you're gonna see it over and over. So let's just continue. Now the Gemara is gonna list a bunch of places in there about the Zara. So about the Zara in general, I can't explain in each line over here what it means. I don't know. But the way the Ramban and others explain is that Avodah Zarah was usually created to pay honor to that gave them sustenance. Okay, for example, in Egypt, they one of the Avodah Zarahs was the Nile, right? The Nile was considered Avodah Zarah, and the reason was because it irrigated all the lands in Egypt. The commerce, all the produce, everything grew because of that Nile, so it got its status of an Avodah Zarah. The Arabs of the old, right, the ancient Arabians, they would worship their sand on the feet, right? We learned this in the Parsha. Why? Because they were merchants, and merchants traveled on sand, and their money came through traveling, and so they worshipped the land that they traveled on, so on and so forth. Most of Avodah Zarahs are based on that. Then there was a second degree of Avodah Zarahs, which we'll see later on in the Gemara, which was really Avodah Zarah for passion, like to create Avodah Zarahs to indulge in certain Aveot. So if you made a Avodah Zarah out of it, and you made a whole religion out of it, then kind of justified people's doing of those Aveot. Okay, they made a Avodah Zarah called Sukkot Benot. Mind you, what was this? What was this Avodah Zarah? Tarnagolet, it was a female chicken, a hen. Okay, whether it be a hen covering her children, right? Different opinions. So Anshe Kut, and those from Kut, Asut and Nirgal. They made a Nirgal. Mani, what's a Nirgal? Tarnagol, a male chicken, right? A rooster. Vanchi Hama Asu et Ashima. And the people of Hamad made a Avodah called Ashima. Uma Nihu. And what was this Ashima? Barhat Kaha. It was a bold buck, a billy goat, a goat with no hair. V'aravim asu nimhas ve'et tarhak. The people from Avim, they made the Avodah Zarah nimhas ve'et tartak. Omanihu kelev v'chamor. They made a kelev and a chamor, a dog and a donkey. That was their Avodah Zarah. והספרדים שורפים את בניהם ואת בנותיהם, ואש לעד המלך ועד המלך אלוהי ספרדים. People of Sephardim, the Pharaohites, would burn their children in a fire to Adramelech and Anamelech. Manihu, what were these Anamelech, Adramelech? Aperet v'hasus, the mule and the horse. Adramelech means va'adale lemare betina. It honors its master. How does it honor its master? By carrying its load. So Adarmelech, Anamelech, and that was the mule, and then Anamelech is the horse. Why? Because the ane, it answered the master. The horse answers, giddy up, right, and stuff like that. The horse comes and listens, and so therefore it was anamelech. And they would bring their children in a fire to these avodah zarahs, to the horse and to the mule. Chizkiah, Melech Yehuda. Truth is, Chizkiah, the king of Yehuda, Bikesh Aviv, his father Achaz, also wanted to do this to him. He was very steeped in avodah zarah, and he wanted to do this to Chizkiah. Ela shesachatu imo salamandra, but his mother put special salamander blood on him. Now, salamandra is usually a salamander, but in the midrash there's a special type of salamander that existed at some point in history, especially for Chizkiah. So look in Rashi, salamandra is also in note 50. Chai katan sheyotzi mitaner. It comes out of an oven shehaesh bo'ered bo sheva shanim, that you had a fire constant for 7 years. And if you spread out his blood, it's fireproof basically. ואחז מצינו כתוב גם את בנו האוויר באש ולא מצינו לו בין אלה חזקיהו. And Achaz only had one son, Chizkiyahu, and he put him through, and he didn't die because the mother put the special salamandra blood on him at that time. Right? The Ramban maintains that salamandra was created by God at that time for the specific purpose of saving the righteous Chizkiyahu. Okay, the midrashic animal. It had a properties of fireproof. Okay, now you've been telling me that the Jews are starting with the Zaram, first Beit Mikdash. We want to know why they did it. What what did they think? Did they really think that Avodah Zarah has powers? What was their background in it? So says the Gemara. Amri Yehuda Amarav. Yodi'in hayu Yisrael be'avodah kochavim she'em bo mamash. Jews really knew that Avodah Zarah doesn't have anything to it. Below avdu kochavim, they didn't serve Avodah Zarah, en lahatir lahem arayot beparhesia, because they wanted to commit arayot, to be with people that are not allowed to be from the Torah. You're not allowed to marry this woman, you're not allowed to marry that way, you're not allowed to sleep with this woman. And they didn't want to listen to the Torah's prohibitions of arayot. They wanted to do it publicly, so they engage in avodah zarah that allows them to do these things. And this way, no one can tell them anything. You know, it's interesting. In my course of life that we've lived so far, we like to live. All of us lived to 120. B'riut, b'shlemot, everything should be good. But I've met people that have the chance to learn Torah, to learn what to do, and they refuse. And when you get to the bottom of it, it's because they don't want to change their lifestyle. They're happy with where they are. They want to do what they want to do, and they don't want to get any limitations to how they live. So they don't want to hear. They're very similar. They tied the Beit HaMikdash. They don't want to stay with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They rather go with Avodah Zarah. And this way they live their life the way they want. Mativ Rav Misharshia. Misharshia says, really? They didn't really believe. They're just doing it in order to behave the way they wanted to behave. But it says, Kiskor B'nehem Mizbechotam. Their altars, they remembered it like they remembered their children. Just like a person who longs for his son, so too they were longing to bring korbanot on the mizbeach for avodah zarah. Now they're just doing it in order to act inappropriately. Rather, they're doing it because they really missed it. Where it says ba'atad avikube. Truth is, no. They started avodah zarah because they wanted to not have any restrictions in there. What they wanted to do, they wanted to have pure pleasure in the world, right? Not the Torah telling me what to do, not the Torah giving me a conscience. Right? It's one of the reasons why the Goyim hate the Jews. They say the Nazis said this. They said the Jews gave the world a conscience. They made us think. We just want to have pure pleasure. We want to just do what we want to do, and no one tells us what to do. No one tells us how to stop and think and to be moral or not. Right? So the Gemara says, really, they wanted to do whatever they wanted to do. And then once they started getting into Avodah Zarah, then they got very attached to it, and then they were missing it and longing for it. Toshma. Come learn the following braita. It says, I will cast your dead body upon the dead body of your idols. Here's an example of this. Amru, they said, Eliyahu HaSadik hayam mechazer tepuche ra'av shibirushalayim. Eliyahu HaSadik, it's Eliyahu HaNavi, here he's called Eliyahu HaSadik. He was looking to see who he can save from the hungers in Jerusalem. People were dying left and right during the time of the Beit Mikdash. Who can I save? Save. Listen to this incredible story. He met a small child. He was bloated. He was hungry. And he was in the garbage heap. Amar lo. So the Navi says to him, from which family you are? I'm from this and this family. Another version of the story says the Navi asks, how many people were in your family? He says 3,000. So Amar lo, he says, anyone else alive from your family? Amar lo, lav hutz mimeni. No, everyone else already died. I'm the last living member of my 3,000 number family. Amar lo, he said to him, the Navi says to this boy, I'm going to teach you something. Are you able to do it? Something to save your life by. Amar lo hen. The boy says, yeah, I'll do it. I want to be saved. So Eliyahu Navi says to them, Emor b'chol yom, say every day, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Say this every day and you'll survive. Amar lo. Child said, hush, quiet. What are you saying? Shalom haskir b'shem Hashem. Don't say Hashem's name. My father and mother never taught me this. Asur, we now allowed to teach Hashem's name. Mayan, quickly, takes out his avodah zarah that his parents gave him. He kissed it, he hugged it until the abdomen, his stomach burst. His avodah zarah fell on the ground, and his dead body fell over that idol. The kayem emar, to fulfill what it says in the Torah, and your dead body will be cast upon the dead body of your idol. And if you read the story, and you can't stop for a moment and say, what? A Jewish child can tell Eliyahu HaNavi, don't mention God's name after the rest of his family died out, because he never heard Hashem's name, and that was a name they hushed and they wouldn't say. It's not a joke. It's not even remote. There are today Jews so assimilated They don't even know the pasuk Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Rav Moshe Meir Weiss, I remember listening to one of Shirim. He says he met a guy like this. He said the guy was Jewish. He met him upstate, and they were playing paddleball or something like that. And the guy said he's Jewish, so he says, "Okay, come. Here's I have an apple, whatever, some cookies. Let's make a bracha." Guy didn't know what a bracha is. Doesn't even know what the concept of a blessing. Doesn't even know the concept of what Hashem is. Doesn't even know what Shema Yisrael. He knows absolutely nothing. There are people like that today. And if you try to teach them something, they say, don't bother it. My parents never this and that. And they're completely away from it. It's not everybody. It's rare and few, but those are very assimilated. It's a lot by them. Baruch Hashem, in the Bukharian world, it's not as much. I don't think so. I haven't met it as much. But there are certain Jewish Bukharian families that I've met that they really want nothing to do with God. They, when we met for the first time, they told me, we're bad Jews. We have nothing to do with God. Not Yom Kippur, nothing. Zilch, nada, squat. I was very shocked at first. But reading this Gemara, I see that it's not the first. That unfortunately has happened in the past. Hashem should give them the koach to take off their blinders, what's blinding them from seeing the truth. So the question here is, you see a child so devoted to his Avodah Zarah, so how could you say they originally only came to Avodah Zarah to be able to do arayot, forbidden relations? You see how close they were. The child died for his Avodah Zarah. The Gemara says again, Batar da'avikube. It's only after they became attached to it. Meaning, originally, their initial was in order to do arayot, but then later on, they got very attached to it. Toshma, come and learn. It says, they cried out in a loud voice to Hashem, their God. My Omar, what did they say? And who is this? It was the Anshei Knesset HaGedolah. They said, woe unto us. You know what caused the destruction of Hashem's house? And caused the destruction of the Kodesh Kedashim. And caused the tzaddikim to die. And caused the Jews to be exiled from their land. And he's still dancing as a thorn amongst us. Did you give it any reason? The Yetzirah for Avodah Zarah is just for us to overcome it and get schar. We don't want Avodah Zarah. We don't want its reward. Again, it seems to be that we're so involved in Avodah Zarah. The Gemara says, Batar de'avikube. No, this again is after we already started, then we became very close to it. But initially, it was in order to do inappropriate things. So now we're going to continue the story of the Anshei Knesset HaGedolah. The Anshei Knesset HaGedolah, they realize, they say, that the Avodah Zarah is so powerful. The Yetzirah for Avodah Zarah is so powerful that they're praying to get rid of it. They fasted for 3 days. 3-day fast is very, very powerful, as we saw in the time of Esther, when they fasted 3 days. The whole Gezerah changed. So they fasted 3 days. They prayed. A paper came out of the sky. And it was written on it, Emet. That Hashem was giving them the power to get rid of the Avodah Zarah, of the Yetzirah. Amar Bihanina, Imamina. We learn from here that Hashem's Chotem, his signature, his signet ring, is, what does it say on it? Emet. That's what he sent out to say that you guys got it. It's true to what you want to do. It's going to work. And now, the likeliness of a fiery lion cub emerged from the Kodesh Kedashim. Why is the Yetzirah? The Navi of Yisrael, Zechariah, tells them, this is the Yetzer for Avodah Zarah. You see where the Yetzer for Avodah Zarah is coming from? From the Kodesh Kedashim. That's how deep the Yetzirah gets in. It can even enter the Kodesh Kedashim. And so now they see this fiery line coming out from the Kodesh Kodashim. They're told it's the Yetzer Hara of Avodah Zarah. So bahadeh de kotefsele. So they try to grab it. Ishtamet b'nitemine. And while they're grabbing it, a piece of his hair comes flying off. V'azal kaleh ba'arba me'ab parseh. And realizing that he's about to be, destroyed, he starts to scream. Maybe even one hair causes him to scream. He screams so much that it's traveled a distance of 3,200,000 amot, very large distance. And he started to scream. So Amru, they said to the Navi, what should we do? Dilma mishmayam rachmele. Since he's crying so much, they might give him rahmanut and shemayim. Amru Navi. So the Chai said to them, shadehu bedudah ta'avara v'chisu ba'avra. Throw it into a lead cauldron and cover the cauldron with lead, the shayif kaleh, because the lead will absorb the sound of the voice. And we can't let him scream. And he threw the lead stone in its mouth. And this is the story here, that they captured the Yetzer Hara of Avodah Zarah and put it into a lead cauldron. Someone pointed out in the shir that it doesn't say that we actually killed him. It says we captured him. So looks like the capturing worked. And that's why today we don't really have, and most of the world doesn't really have a Yetzer Hara to serve Avodah Zarah in the sense of serving, stone and wood and such images. The majority of the world doesn't do that. And it's because the Anshe Knesset Gedolah realizing how big of a ta'ava, right? Menashe Hamel said to someone who in times of the Gemara said, I can't understand how you went to do Avodah Zarah. Menashe Hamel said, if you were in my time, you would be in front of me running, right? That's how powerful the Yetzer Hara is. So today, when a person says, how can anyone do Avodah Zarah? Truth is not really up to us. The fact that we're not having a time for Avodah Zarah, Anshe Knesset Gedolah already got rid of that time. Now, I didn't mention this in the Shabbos here, but our Chacham tell us at the same time the Avodah Zarah, the Yetzer Hara of Avodah Zarah went away, we lost something as well. That was the time that we lost Nevuah. Prophecy from that time no longer existed. Right? It was a trade-off. When there was Avodah Zarah, they needed to have a prophet to go against that desire of Yetzer Hara of the Zarah. But now with no Avodah Zarah Yetzer Hara anymore, the prophecy was no longer needed to combat it. And in order to keep the playing field level, right, the Nevuah had to be taken away. Okay. Now, the Gemara continues to tell us that once they realized they were able to get rid of the Yetzer Hara for Avodah Zarah, they wanted to do the same thing for Yibu Arayot. Amrei, Ho'il Ve'et Rasonhu. Since it's a very favorable time, we're able to get rid of the Yetzer Hara for Avodah Zarah. Let us try to do now for Gilu Arayot. Let us pray for the evil inclination of immorality. They prayed. The evil inclination of immorality was put into their hands. Now, the other version of the story says the Yetzer Hara for this Arayot, for forbidden relations, for relations in general, right? Said to them, if you're going to take away the desire for immorality, the world is going to no longer exist. You need me. So they tied him up and held him for 3 days to see if he was saying the truth or not. Again, the 3 days. But the 3 days they were looking for a freshly laid egg for a sick person who needed a fresh egg for medicine. And they couldn't find it. Amru, they said, what shall we do? They said, well, what should we do? Meaning, nobody, not even the chickens, which usually the roosters and the chickens are known to be very zealous to procreate, and then not even they had a chicken. The whole reproduction, the whole procreating of the whole world just stopped. So what should we do? We can't get rid of the Yetzer Hara. So Nivnei Pa'alga, let's split it. Now let's separate the Kedusha part of it from the Tumah part of it. And Gemara says, it's impossible. Heaven doesn't grant to split this. This Yetzer is a Yetzer that exists, and it is mixed up, intertwined, and you cannot split it. So even though they couldn't split it, they blinded the eyes of this Yetzer Hara. And what they were able to do is that in the majority of the world today, people see it as taboo to sleep with one's mother or one's sister or one's daughter. The close relatives, it's become somewhat of a worldwide universal taboo. And this is because the Anshe Knesset Gedolah blinded, whatever that means, the Yetzer Hara for Arayot. But like Rashi says, the Yetzer Hara for an Ashes Ish, for a married woman, still exists plenty, and as well as for a Nida, still exists plenty. They were unable to take away those. Those still exist. This, I think, this narrative here, this Agadah Gemara in the Gemara is a very important one, especially for men and for women, but especially for men, especially for younger men. There's a book that I recently got my hands on. Someone was giving it out in the shul. I was planning to buy it, and someone was giving it out in the shul. It's called From Boys to Men. I don't know if anyone got a chance to see this sefer. I think Dr. Zimmerman wrote it, and it has a foreword by Rabbi Aaron Feldman, one of the yeshivas. And the book is a must read for all parents of any children, boys or girls, but specifically of boys. And the book deals with today's generation. We have to understand that the world that we live in, especially with the internet and everything being so accessible, young boys have had access to improper images already from a young age. Okay, I think scientists and studies have shown already from the age 10, if not even beforehand, they've already have seen images that in the olden days, going back 100 years ago, people wouldn't have seen so many images. It's impossible. But at the age 10 already, they're seeing all this. And how do they process this? And how do they understand this? Because the Yetzer Hara for this cannot be destroyed because it's needed. It's needed in procreation. It's needed for a man to look for a wife. It's needed for a man to get married. So it needs to be there. But at the same time, we as Jews know that everything that in this world has to be regulated. It cannot just be you just do what you want when you want, how you want. Everything needs to be regulated. Everything needs to be done at the correct time. There's a Ratzon, there's a Simcha, there's a time for everything. There's time for dancing, time for mourning, time for crying, time for laughing. There's a time to have it's a good time for the hormones to be ranging and stuff like that. And there are times that you have to be more passive and more relaxed. Everything requires a proper balance. And I think if anything, this Gemara is telling us that we can't get rid of the Yetzer Hara, but at the same time, we have to control the Yetzer Hara. We have to know how to use it. And for these young boys, their hormones are already raging, 12, 13, and they don't get married till at least most young boys are not getting married till 20, 22. And for all those years, what are they doing with this Yetzer? And how do we understand it? How they should explain it? They shouldn't feel bad that they're having these feelings to see such images or having this feeling to want to know and stuff like that. But at the same time, they have to know how to control it and how to use distraction and how to learn the Talmud and do other things like that. It's important that they have these conversations and they understand them. And the talk needs to be there. Talk definitely needs to be there. If anyone wants to see the picture of that book, if you're not familiar with it, after the class, you can ask me. I can try to send a picture of the book so you can see it. Okay, let's continue on a little bit more. Amar Yehuda, Amar Rav. Maaseh benochrit. There was a story with a Gentile woman. Shaheta hola beyoter. She was badly sick, very sick. Amra, she said, if that woman would get better, I'm talking about herself in third person, I'm going to go and serve every avodah zarah that's in the world. What happened? Amda, she recovered. And she went and she served every zarah. When she came to the avodah zarah of the Baal Peor, right? She asked the priests there, how do you serve this Baal Peor avodah zarah? Merula, they told her, Eat beets and drink beer. Basically, take a big laxative. And then you defecate and you poop in front of the idol. Amna, she said, what? What type of crazy avodah zarah is this? Mutav I'd rather be sick again, and not do this avodah zarah. Wow, wow, this was a goya. She understood the craziness of the Baal Peor. But Atem Bet Yisrael Enan came, says Rabbi Yehuda. But the Jews, terrible. When it came to Baal Peor, Hanitzmadim the Baal Peor, they were so attached to the Baal Peor. Kitzamid Patil, like a lid on a cover on a pot, like a lid on a pot. That's how close they are. They were so attached. But when it came to Hashem, V'atem Adikim B'Adonai Elohechem, they were doivek be'Hashem. What? Like Temarot Devakozobazo, like two dates that are attached, very sticky to each other, but you can split them very easily. When the Jews' connection to Hashem, loosely affiliated. When they were connected to the Baal Peor, whoa, they were very, 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 very attached, says Rabbi Yehuda. Braita said, and our Braita, we had a little bit different. Hanitzmadim the Baal Peor, when the Jews were attached to Baal Peor, Kitzamid al Yedei Isha, they were like a bracelet on the hand of a woman. So a bracelet on the hand of on a woman, you'll see the bracelet is loose. That's the way they were. Kitzamid al Yedei Isha. Vatem hadikim Adonai Elohechem. But when they were connected to Hashem, divukim mamash, they were really connected, strongly connected. So the Braita is just the opposite in Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. So Yehuda is saying that they were really attached to Avodah Zarah, and they're not so close to Hashem. But the Mishnah, the Braita says opposite, that they were attached really close to Hashem, but then the Avodah Zarah they were loosely affiliated with. Tanura Banan. Maaseh b'Sabata ben Alas. There was a story of Sabata ben Alas. One Gentile woman hired his donkey to be ride upon while he led it. When she came to the Baal Peor, Amra lo, she said to him, wait for me here until I go in and come out. Once she came out, he said to her, now you're going to wait for me. Until I go in and I come out. Amra lo, she says to him, what? Are you not Jewish? And you're going into the Baal Peor? Amarla, like many Jews who want to do wrong things, they tell them, Uma ichpat lach, what's your problem? What's the difference to you? Let me do what I want. Let's live and be married. Leave me alone. Nichnash, he goes in. Oh, he made a big defecation in front of the Peor. And then, he wiped himself using the nose of the Baal Peor. The priests of the Avodah Zarah, they came over and they said to him, wow, there was never anybody who served the Avodah Zarah like you did. You super user. You the super server of this Avodah Zarah. It's unfortunate that a lot of times the Jews, when they take on a certain cause, they is stronger in that cause than the Goyim themselves. And here this Jew is going at Avodah Zarah. He's doing a better job than all the Goyim in serving the Avodah Zarah. And the Jew is doing it on purpose to go against Hashem. So he wants to do it even better. He wants to go really strong against Hashem. Unfortunately. So now we finished pretty much most of the. I gotta tell you one more piece. We're almost done for today. A couple more minutes. Let's say a person goes and says, you know what, I want to serve Avodah Zarah. I don't want to serve the Avodah Zarah, but I want to poop in front of the Baal Peor to embarrass it. The person says, no, that's still asur because that's its service. You can't do that. Same thing with the Markulis. Markulis was Avodah Zarah that was on the road, and you used to take stones and throw in it, and that's how you would serve it. Let's say a person says, I want to take a stone and I want to throw in it so I can break it. No, you can't do that because that's also its service to throw something in it. Rabbi Menashe was going towards Beit Torata. Amrulo, they told him, Avodah Zarah he deka'ehacha. There's going to be an Avodah Zarah standing there. So he took a clod of earth, not a stone, and he threw it at the idol. Amrulo. They said to him, Markilusi, what are you doing? You're throwing it at Markulus. That's the whole service. Amru, Hazork Evil Markulus tonight. It says throwing a stone. I didn't throw a stone. I threw some earth at it. But then he wasn't so sure. So he went to the Beit Midrash. Amrulo, they told to him, Hazork Evil Markulis tonight. Even if you threw the stone in order to embarrass it, still throwing something at it is asur. What you did was improper. Since what you did was improper. So Amar Lahu, he said to them, "Is it ishkalet? Okay, let me go and remove it now." Amrullah, they said to him, "Echad Markulis, you cannot remove it. Anyone who puts it, anyone who removes it, also hayav. Why? Because if you're going to remove it, you're just making space for someone else to throw another clod of earth on it. So you're preparing it for the next one. So therefore, you can't do it. So this is, I think, an important concept here as well. You got to think before you do something and figure out before you do it, because sometimes you can't really fix it. Tshuva is teshuvah. Teshuvah always works, but if you're planning to do tshuva, that's what you're going to do the favor now. This doesn't work. And tshuva, that's it's what's better, to not do it or to do tshuva afterwards, right? You have to think about that. So it's an important concept. Not everything can be fixed, unfortunately. All right, that ends off the Gemara to that Mishnah. We'll start the Mishnah here, and then next week we'll go back. Interesting Mishnah. We're talking now about the Molech. Molech, right? So the Molech, what was it? We're going to have to deal. The Gemara is going to deal with. We're not going to deal with it today, but the Gemara is going to deal with it if Molech actually was its own, is an avodah zarah, or it's not an avodah zarah. The Rambam paskins that it's not an avodah zarah, like one of the opinions in the Gemara, that Molech is not an avodah zarah. Rather, it was a superstitious belief that the Molech was considered some sort of type of ruler, not necessarily avodah zarah, some sort of ruler, and they had a fire there, and you would give your children to the priest, and then they pass the children through the fire. Between the fires, over a fire, we'll see all this stuff as we go through it. So that's why it's listed separately from avodah zarah. Because if it was within avodah zarah, then you wouldn't have to list it separately in the Mishnah. But we're mentioning it different because it's not under the same gather as avodah zarah. Hanatei zarah l'moilech. Someone gives from his children to moilech. You have to give from. That means not all, but some of your children. Eno hayav. He's not hayav skila. Ad sheim sola molech, until he gives it over to the priests of the molech. V'ya'avir ba'esh, and passes the child through the fire. Who is passing the child through the fire? Cholkes, Rashi, and the Rambam. So our Rishonim. Rashi says you give it over to the priest, and then the priests of the molech go and pass him over the fire. The Rambam says you give it over to the priest, and the priest gives it back to the father. And the Avi Haben then takes the child and passes him over the fire by foot. We pass him like the Rambam. So you give it to the priests of the molech, then they give it back to you, and then the person goes and he travels on foot with the child over the fire, and then the person would be hayav skila. If you gave it to the priest and you didn't carry it over the fire, if you gave it over the fire but you didn't give it to the priest, you're not hayav skila. Until he hands the child over to the molech and passes him through the fire. You have to have both stages done in that order. You got to give it over to the priests, according to the Rambam. They give it back to you, and then you pass him over the fire. Okay, this is where we'll get up to for today. As Hashem. Next week we will continue from here. If any questions, I'll take it at this time. I know a lot of these stories you've heard before, but it's always good to see one of the primary sources for them. Okay, very good. Baruch, Shavua Tov.